The massive window of the Galactic Council station offered a perfect view of Earth's first official starship, the Daredevil, as it smoothly glided into the docking position. The ship's sleek design stood out among the more practical-looking alien vessels. While the alien ships focused on function with their blocky shapes and obvious shield generators, the humans had somehow made their ship both functional and beautiful, like a silver arrow ready to pierce the stars. Captain James Miller stood at the bridge of the Daredevil, his hands clasped behind his back as he watched the docking clamps engage. He couldn't help but smile at how far humanity had come in just 50 years since discovering the ruins of an alien ship on Mars. That discovery had kicked humanity's space program into high gear, and now here they were, about to join the galactic community. Engineering reports the new drive modifications are holding steady, Captain, said First Officer Beth White, her voice carrying a hint of worry. The modifications weren't exactly approved. But Miller had never been one to leave well enough alone, especially when he saw room for improvement. Excellent, Miller said, straightening his uniform. Let's go make history. The welcoming committee waiting in the docking bay was an impressive sight. 12 representatives from the most powerful species in the galaxy stood in their formal robes. The tallest was nearly 8 feet high with iridescent scales, while the shortest barely reached Miller's waist, but had eyes that seemed to contain entire nebulae. A blue-skinned alien with 4 arms stepped forward. Welcome to the Galactic Council Station. I am High Counselor Wren. We have been looking forward to this meeting, since we detected your species' first faster-than-light test flight. Miller bowed slightly, remembering his diplomatic training. The honor is ours, High Counselor. I'm Captain James Miller of the Earth ship Daredevil, and this is my first officer, Beth White. The formal introductions continued, each species offering their traditional greetings. Miller's crew managed not to stare too obviously at the floating crystalline being, or the one that seemed to be made entirely of shifting shadows. Everything was going perfectly until they reached the tour of the engineering section. One of the council members, a being with metallic skin that clicked when they moved, was explaining their standard FTL drive design. This is the safest and most efficient design we have developed over 10,000 years of space travel, they said, their voice carrying the slight echo of metal on metal. Miller listened politely, but he couldn't help himself. He had spent the last month tweaking the Daredevil's drive, and he knew he had stumbled onto something revolutionary. The council member's explanation of safe and efficient seemed to translate to slow and outdated in his mind. It's a very impressive system, Miller said, choosing his words carefully. But I think we might have found a way to improve it. The council members turned to him with various expressions of surprise, curiosity, and in some cases, what appeared to be alarm. Improve? High Counselor Wren asked. This design has been standardized across the galaxy for millennia. Captain, Beth whispered, tugging at his sleeve. Remember the briefing about cultural sensitivities? Miller knew he should stop. He could see Beth's warning look, but the engineer in him couldn't let it go. The basic design is sound, but we found that by reconfiguring the quantum field generator and adding a secondary containment matrix, we can increase efficiency by at least 40%. The metallic council member made a sound like chimes in a storm. That would be highly unstable. The energy requirements alone would. Watch this, Miller said, pulling out his tablet. I can show you the calculations. The effect was immediate and completely unexpected. Every alien in the room froze. The crystalline being's light dimmed. The shadow creature seemed to compress in on itself. High Counselor Wren's 4 arms all reached for different emergency devices. Emergency Protocol 7, one of the council members shouted. Human verbal warning detected. Alarm klaxons began blaring throughout the station. The metallic council member was already backing away, their surface reflecting the flashing red warning lights. The human said it. They actually said it. Station, initiate emergency containment procedures. Said what? Miller asked, completely confused. I just wanted to show you the drive modifications we made. Captain, Beth hissed. I think we should. Before she could finish, energy fields sprang up around their group. The council members were quickly evacuating the engineering section, some moving with surprising speed for beings that had appeared so formal and stately just moments before. Please remain calm, an automated voice announced. A human-initiated emergency has been detected. All non-essential personnel, please proceed to your designated safety zones. This is not a drill. Miller stood in the containment field, watching as the entire engineering section was sealed off. His tablet was still in his hand, the drive modification calculations glowing innocently on the screen. Beth, he said slowly, I think I might have made a diplomatic incident. You think? Beth replied, but there was a hint of amusement in her voice. Although I have to admit, I've never seen a group of diplomats move that fast. It took 3 hours for the situation to be resolved. The council members insisted on reviewing Miller's modifications from a safe distance, using remote drones to examine the data. To their evident surprise, the calculations checked out. The modifications were not only viable but represented a genuine improvement to their standard design. This seemed to cause even more concern. You made these changes for fun? High Counselor Wren asked during the emergency review session, still maintaining a safe distance. Well, more out of professional curiosity, Miller explained. The standard design was good, but I thought it could be better. Sometimes you have to try new things to make progress. And you tested these modifications on your way to this historic first meeting. Another council member asked, their crystalline form flickering with what might have been anxiety. We ran simulations first, Miller said defensively, and everything worked perfectly. But what if it hadn't? Miller shrugged. Then we would have learned what not to do next time. This statement seemed to require another hour of discussion among the council members in their native languages. Miller couldn't follow most of it, but he was pretty sure he heard the phrase, "They're all like this," repeated several times. Finally, High Counselor Wren approached their containment field, though still maintaining what they apparently considered a safe distance. Captain Miller, they said formally, while your improvements appear to be both innovative and functional, we must establish some ground rules for future interaction. Primarily, we need to discuss the use of certain phrases that, in our experience, often precede significant disruptions to the natural order. Phrases? Miller asked. You mean watch this? 3 council members flinched. Yes. Wren continued, their voice strained. That phrase. In our research preparing for first contact, we noticed it appeared in your historical records with alarming frequency, often just before events that drastically altered your scientific understanding or caused significant property damage. Miller thought about this for a moment. He remembered his grandfather's stories about backyard rocket experiments that started with those exact words. And now that he thought about it, the phrase did seem to show up in a lot of human achievement videos and human disaster videos. I suppose we do say that a lot, he admitted, but it's just a way of sharing excitement about new ideas. Your species' definition of exciting is precisely what concerns us, Wren said. However, given the apparent success of your drive modifications, we are prepared to continue diplomatic relations. We will simply need to establish certain safety protocols. As Miller and Beth were finally released from the containment field, he couldn't help but notice that the council members were already drafting what appeared to be an extensive new set of regulations. He caught a glimpse of the title, Human Verbal Warning Signs and Emergency Response Procedures. Humanity's first day in the galactic community hadn't gone quite as planned, but they had certainly made an impression. And somehow, Miller suspected this wouldn't be the last time humans would surprise their new alien neighbors with their unique approach to progress. At least they hadn't shown them the experimental shield modifications yet. Commander Lisa Reed stared at the document on her screen, reading it for the 3rd time to make sure she wasn't hallucinating. After the incident with Captain Miller's ship last month, The Galactic Council had been working overtime to create new safety protocols for dealing with humans. The final document had just been released, and it was both hilarious and deeply concerning. They actually made it a Class 1 emergency phrase, she muttered, shaking her head as she sat in her office at the newly established Earth Embassy on the Galactic Council station. Right up there with detection of planet-killing asteroids and hostile fleet movements. The document, titled Human Warning Protocol, classified the phrase, "Watch this," as an immediate evacuation trigger. Any non-human personnel within hearing range were required to move to designated safe zones and initiate containment procedures. The protocol even included a helpful appendix of historical Earth broadcasts demonstrating why this was necessary. A light chime announced the arrival of First Representative Toll, a tall being with silver skin that rippled like water when they moved. "Commander Reed, do you have a moment to discuss the new protocols?" "Of course," Lisa said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. "Though I have to say, this seems a bit extreme." Toll settled into the specially designed seat, their skin catching the light in mesmerizing patterns. "We analyzed over 10,000 hours of your species' historical records. The phrase, 'Watch this,' preceded 73% of your technological breakthroughs and 92% of your documented accidents. The statistics are quite clear. But that's just how humans express excitement about new ideas," Lisa tried to explain. "It's not actually a warning sign. We have footage of a human saying those exact words before attempting to launch themselves over a canyon on a wheeled device powered by rockets," Toll said, their skin darkening with concern. "Ah, you found those videos." Lisa winced. "But you have to understand, that's how we learn and innovate. Sometimes you have to try crazy things to make progress. Like the incident last week in Laboratory Section 7. Toll asked pointedly. Lisa had been hoping they wouldn't bring that up. A human scientist had wondered if the standard alien food synthesizers could be modified to make better coffee. The resulting explosion had covered 3 decks in a substance that was technically coffee but had the consistency of cement. "That was an unfortunate accident," she said diplomatically. The scientist said, "Watch this," approximately 2.3 seconds before the incident. "Point taken," Lisa sighed. "But we can't just evacuate entire sections every time a human gets excited about an idea." "We can. And we will," Toll said firmly. The Council has also noticed an alarming trend of humans deliberately using the phrase to clear areas for unauthorized experiments. Lisa tried to keep her face neutral, but she knew exactly what Toll was talking about. Word had spread quickly through the human scientific community about the automatic evacuation protocol. Some of the more creative engineers had started using it as a way to get privacy for testing new ideas. "I'll send out a memo about that," she promised. Just then, her computer chimed with an emergency alert. 3 sections of the station were initiating evacuation procedures simultaneously. Lisa pulled up the security feeds with a growing sense of dread. In Section 12, a human engineer was showing off a slightly modified gravity generator. Section 25 had a human chef who thought he could improve the efficiency of the station's waste recycling system to make better fertilizer for his hydroponic herbs. And in Section 31, someone was apparently trying to teach an alien eye to understand human jokes. 3 at once, Toll observed, their skin now a concerned shade of deep silver. "This is exactly why we needed the protocol." Lisa watched as aliens of all species calmly but quickly moved to their designated safe zones. The evacuation was remarkably efficient, probably because they'd had so much practice lately. She had to admit, it was better than the chaos of the first few weeks after first contact. "At least no one's panicking anymore," she offered. "The Council is considering adding more phrases to the warning list," Toll continued. "Hold my beer and I got an idea are currently under review." Lisa put her head in her hands. "Please don't. The scientists will just start using those deliberately too. We've also noticed the humans seem to take our emergency responses as a challenge. Several of your engineers have started keeping score of how quickly they can trigger an evacuation." "I'll talk to them," Lisa promised, making a mental note to find out who was winning that competition. For official reasons, of course. A new alert popped up on her screen. Another evacuation, this time in the main council chamber itself. The security feed showed a human diplomat gesturing excitedly at a holographic display of the station's power distribution system. "Looks like Jack's trying to show them his new energy efficiency calculations," Lisa said, recognizing the diplomat. "He's been working on that for weeks. The last time a human tried to improve our power systems, it took 3 days to restore normal gravity to the residential sections," Toll reminded her. "But it works better now, doesn't it?" Toll's skin rippled in what Lisa had learned was their equivalent of a reluctant nod. The efficiency did increase by 27%. However, the method of achieving that increase was unsettling. Another alert chimed. 2 more sections going into evacuation mode. "Perhaps we should continue this discussion in a safe zone," Toll suggested, already rising from their chair. "It's fine," Lisa assured them. "My office is designated as a contained area, specifically for handling human-related incidents." She gestured to the reinforced walls and emergency containment field generators. "Though I still think that's overkill." "Commander Reed," Toll said seriously, "in the past month alone, humans have attempted to improve our food synthesizers, gravity generators, power distribution, waste management, AI systems, and shield harmonics." Each attempt was preceded by those words, and each resulted in at least some property damage. But also improvements, Lisa pointed out. The shield modifications actually worked. After turning the entire defense fleet bright pink for 6 hours. That was just an unexpected side effect, and some of the ships looked quite nice in pink. Toll's skin swirled with patterns that Lisa recognized as their version of exasperated amusement. The Council has noted that human innovations, while often effective, tend to take paths that no sane species would consider. The evacuation protocol is as much for our peace of mind as for actual safety. Lisa's computer chimed again. 5 more evacuations in progress. "I should probably deal with this," she said, standing up. "Would you like me to escort you to the nearest safe zone?" "That would be appreciated," Toll said, moving toward the door. "The Council meets tomorrow to discuss adding visual warnings to accompany the verbal ones. We've noticed humans often make a particular facial expression just before saying those words." As they walked through the corridors, passing groups of aliens calmly making their way to safe zones, Lisa couldn't help but smile. Humanity had been part of the galactic community for less than 2 months, and they'd already fundamentally changed how emergency protocols worked. She wondered what would happen when humans started sharing their other favorite phrases. What could possibly go wrong? Was bound to cause some interesting reactions. Through a nearby viewport, she could see the station's central hub, where Captain Miller's drive modifications were being carefully studied by alien engineers from a safe distance. Despite all the chaos, humanity's unique approach to innovation was already leaving its mark on the galaxy. Even if that mark sometimes needed to be cleaned off the ceiling with industrial-strength solvents. Dr. Tom Walker wasn't supposed to be in the restricted archives of the Galactic Council Station. The fact that he had gained access using a series of clever hacks and one particularly well-timed "watch this evacuation" was beside the point. What mattered was what he found in those archives, and right now, he was staring at proof of something he had suspected for months. The aliens were deliberately holding back technological progress. His tablet quietly copied file after file, each one revealing a pattern that stretched back thousands of years. The Council didn't just regulate technology. They actively suppressed innovation to maintain what they called galactic stability. Brilliant ideas from member species were quietly filed away, marked as too destabilizing for implementation. "Those sneaky little bureaucrats," he muttered, scrolling through more files. No wonder they panicked when Captain Miller showed them the drive modifications. A message popped up on his tablet. His friend Bill from engineering had just triggered another "watch this evacuation" in Section 14. buying him an extra 15 minutes before the regular security sweep would reach the archives. The evacuation protocols that were meant to contain human chaos had become their greatest tool for exploration. Tom downloaded the last file and carefully erased his tracks. As he made his way back to his lab, he passed several aliens calmly walking to their safe zones, so used to human-triggered evacuations by now that they treated them like routine fire drills. Back in his lab, he called an emergency meeting of what had become known as the Innovation Underground, a loose group of human scientists and engineers who had noticed the Council's suspicious attitude toward progress. Within an hour, 20 of the brightest minds humanity had sent to the station were crowded into his containment-shielded lab. "Look at this," he said, projecting the files onto the wall. "They have plans for clean fusion that they developed 800 years ago. Artificial gravity without generators, even biological immortality, all marked as too disruptive to implement." "That explains why they keep insisting we stick to their standard designs," said Rita, a quantum physicist who had been trying to improve the station's shield harmonics. "They're not just resistant to change, they're actively preventing it." "But why?" asked Mark from the medical division. "Some of these technologies could save lives." "According to these records," Tom explained, "they had some bad experiences with rapid technological advancement in their early history. 3 species wiped themselves out by developing technology faster than their cultures could handle it, so they decided to put the brakes on everything." "Well, that's not happening anymore," Rita declared. "Not now that we know about it." The group spent the next hour planning. They couldn't directly confront the Council. That would just lead to more restrictions. Instead, they needed to prove that innovation didn't have to be dangerous. Well, not too dangerous, anyway. Over the next few weeks, the human scientists launched what they privately called Operation Watch This. They began making carefully calculated improvements to various systems throughout the station, using the evacuation protocols as cover for their work. Rita modified the shield harmonics to create a self-repairing system that was 40% more efficient. She did turn half the station's windows temporarily translucent in the process, but the improvement was worth the brief embarrassment of everyone being able to see each other's quarters. Mark revolutionized the medical bay's diagnostic systems by combining 3 different alien scanning technologies that the Council had deemed incompatible. The resulting device could detect illnesses before they showed symptoms, even if it did occasionally give its readings in the form of interpretive dance. Bill managed to improve the station's waste recycling efficiency by 200%, though the less said about the testing phase, the better. The Council was still trying to figure out how he had temporarily turned all the station's water into a substance that tasted exactly like premium coffee, but contained no actual coffee molecules. The Council noticed, of course. How could they not? But every time they investigated, they found that the improvements were already integrated into crucial systems. Removing them would cause more disruption than leaving them in place. What really caught their attention, though, was how other species began to react. A group of younger aliens started hanging around the human sections, watching their work with increasing interest. Soon, there were quiet requests for collaboration, for explanations of human testing methods, for insights into what they called controlled chaos theory. "Did you see the new coffee machine in Section 8? Tom asked during another underground meeting. "The one built by that young crystal engineer." "You mean the one that makes drinks that let you temporarily understand any language?" Rita grinned. "I heard it blew up 3 times before they got it working. They're learning." The Council was not amused. They began installing more monitoring systems, increasing security patrols, and adding new phrases to the evacuation protocol. "I've got an idea. What if we, and theoretically speaking, all became emergency triggers?" The humans adapted. They started using coded phrases, hand signals, and in one memorable case, interpretive dance to communicate their intentions. The evacuation protocols became an elaborate game of cat and mouse, with humans finding new ways to trigger them, and the Council constantly updating their regulations. Then came the day when Tom found something in the archives that changed everything. Hidden in the deepest restricted files was information about an ancient threat, something the Council had been watching with growing concern for centuries. "They're called the Harvesters," he told the group during an emergency meeting. "Self-replicating machines that consume everything in their path to make more of themselves. The Council's been tracking them for generations, watching them slowly make their way through distant galaxies." "Let me guess," Rita said grimly. "The Council's solution is to do nothing and hope they don't come this way." "They have contingency plans," Tom said, "all of which involve sacrificing outer worlds to buy time for the core systems. They're so afraid of disrupting their stability that they'd rather lose whole planets than risk untested solutions." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't just stumbled into a galactic community that feared change. They had arrived just in time to witness the consequences of that fear. "Well," Mark said finally, standing up with a familiar glint in his eye, "I guess we better come up with something really good to show them." "Are you thinking what I'm thinking?" Rita asked, already pulling out her tablet. "Operation Ultimate Watch This." Tom grinned. The others nodded, already beginning to plan. The Council had spent thousands of years maintaining stability. But now, with an unstoppable threat approaching and a species that treated impossible as a personal challenge, that stability was about to be thoroughly disrupted. As the group dispersed to begin their work, Tom couldn't help but smile. The Council had been right about one thing. When humans said, "Watch this," it usually meant everything was about to change. They just hadn't realized that sometimes change was exactly what the galaxy needed. And if their solution happened to turn the station's artificial gravity inside out, or temporarily convert all matter into singing purple bubbles, well, that's just how progress worked sometimes. The emergency alert sounded different this time. Instead of the usual evacuation tone that everyone had grown used to hearing whenever a human had an idea, this alarm had a deep, resonating quality that made the station's walls vibrate. In the main council chamber, the massive holographic display showed a sight that made even the most composed alien representatives break their careful diplomatic postures. The Harvesters had arrived decades ahead of schedule. Engineer Mike Thompson stood at the back of the chamber, watching as the council members argued in their various languages. The translation system was struggling to keep up with their panic, creating a chaotic mix of overlapping voices all saying essentially the same thing. "We're not ready." The display showed the Harvester swarm moving through the outer systems, converting entire planets into more of themselves. Their traditional cube-shaped ships might have seemed almost boring, if not for the way they efficiently stripped whole worlds bare in days. "The containment fleet reports a complete failure to slow their advance," announced High Counselor Wren, their 4 arms moving in patterns that reflected their distress. "The standard defense protocols are having no effect. Perhaps if we implement the evacuation plan for the outer systems," suggested one of the crystalline representatives, their structure flickering with anxiety. Mike had been studying the Harvester data ever since Tom Walker had discovered it in the archives. He'd run hundreds of simulations, testing crazy idea after crazy idea. And now, watching the Council prepare to sacrifice billions of lives in a fighting retreat, he knew he couldn't stay quiet any longer. He stepped forward, his movement drawing attention in the panic-filled chamber. "I have an idea," he said, reaching for his tablet. Several council members immediately began moving toward their designated safe zones. "This is not the time for human experimentation," Wren said firmly. "We need to implement our established contingency plans." "Your established plans will get everyone killed," Mike replied. He pulled up his simulations, trying to project them onto the main display. "But if we combine your stable tech base with some human-style innovative chaos, the human is going to say it," warned one of the shadow form representatives, already halfway to the door. Mike took a deep breath. He knew what would happen when he said the next words, but they needed to hear this. "Watch this," he declared. "I have a solution." The chamber erupted into action. Emergency containment fields sprang up, safe zones filled with retreating council members, and security drones moved to contain what they assumed would be another human-induced disaster. 3 representatives left so quickly they forgot their ceremonial headpieces. But Mike had planned for this. He'd worked with Rita from the Shield Harmonics team to set up a special override. His tablet connected to the main systems before the evacuation protocols could fully engage. The harvesters work on predictable patterns, he explained to the now mostly empty chamber, his voice carrying through the emergency communication systems to the safe zones where the council members were hiding. They can counter any standard attack because they've seen it all before, but they've never encountered human chaos theory. He pulled up his simulation, showing how the harvesters' cube ships moved in perfect mathematical formations. Look at their ship movements. Everything they do is based on precise calculations and perfect efficiency, which means they have absolutely no defense against complete irrationality. Are you suggesting we fight them with nonsense? Asked a council member through the comm system. Exactly. Mike grinned. We use your stable technology as a base, but then we modify it in ways that make absolutely no sense. Hit them with weapons that don't follow the laws of physics. Defense systems that work backwards. Ships that aren't really there except on Tuesdays. There was a long pause. Those things are impossible, someone finally said. Impossible is humanity's specialty, Mike replied. We've already proven we can make improvements you thought were impossible. Now we just need to do it on a bigger scale. He showed them the next simulation. We can use the quantum field generators from the modified drive systems to create localized areas where reality doesn't work quite right. Combine that with your phase technology, and we can make weapons that exist in all possible states at once until someone makes a joke about them. This is madness, declared one of the crystalline representatives. Exactly. That's why it will work. The harvesters can't adapt to something that doesn't make sense because their whole system is based on logic and efficiency. We need to hit them with something so completely irrational that their adaptation protocols will crash trying to understand it. To demonstrate, he activated a small device he'd built. A section of the council chamber briefly turned inside out without actually changing position, then filled with a substance that was simultaneously liquid, solid, and a small duck. And that's just a prototype, he said proudly. Through the containment fields, he could see some of the younger alien representatives watching with interest. They had been working with humans long enough to start understanding that sometimes the craziest solutions were the best ones. The humans' plan is dangerous and completely untested, said High Counselor Wren from their safe zone. Yes, agreed Mike, but your tested and safe plans aren't working. The harvesters are coming, and they're not going to politely wait while we try the same old strategies that failed to stop them before. He showed them another simulation, this one demonstrating how the harvesters' perfect cube ships would react to encountering spaces where the normal rules of reality took a coffee break. Their adaptation protocols would try to compensate, fail to find a logical solution, try again with different parameters, fail again, and eventually lock up completely. We can't beat them with logic, Mike explained, but we can absolutely defeat them with carefully weaponized nonsense. Humanity's greatest strength is that we don't always make sense, even to ourselves. And now that's exactly what the galaxy needs. A new alert sounded. The harvesters had just consumed another system, converting 3 planets and their moons into more cube ships. We're running out of time, Mike said. You can either stay in your safe zones and watch the galaxy be consumed by space Roombas with delusions of grandeur, or you can help me implement the craziest defense strategy in galactic history. There was a long moment of silence. Then, slowly, one of the younger crystalline representatives emerged from their safe zone. I helped design the coffee machine that teaches languages, they said. I think I understand what the human is suggesting. We need to weaponize innovation itself. A shadow form representative joined them. The human chaos has improved our systems, even if the methods were disturbing. perhaps disturbing, is what we need now. One by one, more council members emerged, though many still kept a safe distance from Mike and his tablet. High Councilor Wren was the last to step forward. "The council has maintained stability in this galaxy for thousands of years," they said solemnly. "But perhaps there are times when stability is not the answer." Mike grinned. "Trust me, this is going to be the most unstable solution you've ever seen. Now, who wants to help me turn the laws of physics into more of a set of physics suggestions?" As the council members gathered around his simulations, Mike sent a quick message to the other human engineers. They had a lot of work to do, and they needed to do it fast. But for the first time since the harvesters appeared, there was hope. Sometimes, the only way to save the galaxy was to temporarily break it. And if there was one thing humans were good at, it was breaking things in surprisingly useful ways. The battle for galactic survival began with what would later be recorded as the largest synchronized "watch this" event in human history. Across 50 star systems, human engineers and their newly converted alien colleagues triggered their modified devices simultaneously. The evacuation protocols went crazy trying to clear every sector at once. Space itself seemed to hiccup. In System 17, 3 planets temporarily swapped positions while playing a complex game of musical orbits. System 23's star started producing light that made anyone who saw it temporarily speak in rhyming couplets, and in System 35, all matter briefly turned into various breakfast foods before returning to normal. Mike Thompson stood in the main control room of the Galactic Council Station, surrounded by screens showing the chaos unfolding across space. Beside him, High Councilor Wren was trying very hard not to look directly at any of the displays, their 4 hands clasped tightly behind their back. "Phase 1 is working," Mike announced, watching as the harvester cubes encountered the first waves of weaponized nonsense. Their adaptation protocols are trying to compensate for the reality fluctuations. Rita's voice came through the comm system from her position in System 29. "You should see this. The cubes are trying to maintain their perfect geometric shapes while passing through spaces where geometry doesn't work the same way. Some of them have corners that exist next Tuesday." The harvester ships began showing signs of confusion. Their usually perfect formations started to break down as they encountered regions of space where the laws of physics had been temporarily replaced with interpretive dance guidelines. Tom Walker reported in from the front lines. "The quantum field generators are working exactly wrong, which means they're working exactly right. The harvesters can't process spaces where cause comes after effect and probability is measured in shades of purple." The main display showed a harvester cube trying to consume a small moon, only to find that the moon was simultaneously there, not there, and hosting a rather nice tea party. The cube's surface rippled as its programming tried to adapt, failed, tried again, and began to glitch. "Now for Phase 2, Mike said, activating the next set of modifications. "Everyone ready for the really weird stuff?" A chorus of human voices responded with various versions of "watch this." The evacuation protocols gave up entirely and just displayed "humans are doing things" in all sectors. The combined human-alien engineering teams had spent weeks preparing for this moment. They had taken every stable, reliable piece of galactic technology and modified it in ways that made the original designers cry. The result was a cascade of controlled chaos that spread across space like a wave of pure impossibility. Defensive shields started working in reverse, protecting ships by extending their vulnerable areas into dimensions where damage couldn't exist. Weapons fired backwards through time, hitting their targets the day before they were fired. Communication systems transmitted messages that could only be understood if you weren't actually trying to understand them. The harvester swarm's perfect coordination began to break down. Individual cubes started spinning in place, their surfaces shifting through impossible geometries as they tried to adapt to conditions that actively defied adaptation. Some of them attempted to consume nearby matter only to find that matter had temporarily retired and left a strongly worded note about coming back later. Their central control network is overloading, reported one of the crystalline engineers who had helped design the chaos cascade. They cannot maintain swarm coherence while experiencing 17 different versions of reality simultaneously. Mike nodded, checking the readings on his tablet. Time for the final push. Dr. Walker, activate the probability inverters. In 50 different star systems, teams of humans and aliens who had learned to embrace controlled chaos activated devices that turned probability itself inside out. Suddenly, the least likely outcome became the most probable. The harvester's prediction algorithms, faced with calculating odds that actively argued with themselves, began to fail. "Look," shouted Rita over the comm. "They're trying to retreat, but they can't figure out which direction makes sense anymore." The main display showed the harvester swarm breaking apart. Some cubes had developed polka dots. Others had started reciting poetry in binary. A few had apparently decided to become interpretive dance critics and were writing strongly worded reviews about the aesthetic qualities of nearby asteroid fields. Then, in a cascade of physics-defying effects, the swarm's central control network finally crashed. Without their perfect coordination, the individual cubes couldn't maintain their complex replication protocols. They began to dissolve into clouds of confused nanomachines that couldn't remember if they were supposed to be cubes, hypercubes, or participants in an improvised comedy show. "We did it," Mike exclaimed, turning to High Counselor Wren. "The power of weaponized nonsense prevails." Wren was staring at the displays with an expression that suggested they were seriously reconsidering every decision that had led to this moment. "You defeated an ancient threat that has consumed countless civilizations by breaking the universe. Only temporarily," Mike assured them. "Most of the effects will wear off in a few days. Though System 23 might keep rhyming for a week or two, and I'm not entirely sure when that one planet will stop being made of waffles." Reports began coming in from across the affected systems. The harvester threat was completely neutralized. Reality was slowly settling back into its usual patterns, though with some interesting new quirks. Several alien species were already studying the after effects, talking excitedly about the scientific possibilities of controlled chaos theory. In the days that followed, the Galactic Council held an emergency session to discuss the implications of what had happened. The chamber was packed, though some representatives still instinctively moved toward the safe zones whenever a human stood up to speak. "We must acknowledge," High Counselor Wren announced, "that our policy of absolute stability nearly led to our destruction. The human approach to innovation, while terrifying, has proven its worth." The Council voted to create a new department, the Bureau of Controlled Chaos and Innovation. It would be tasked with finding a balance between stable progress and revolutionary changes. Humans would work alongside aliens who had learned to appreciate the value of occasional nonsense. They also voted to maintain the Watch This evacuation protocols, but with a modification. Now, when humans said those words, others could choose to either move to a safe zone or stay and witness whatever impossible thing was about to happen. As Mike left the council chamber, he found a group of young alien engineers waiting for him. They had questions about chaos theory, impossible modifications, and the proper application of randomness in technological development. "The first rule of human innovation," he told them with a grin, "is that sometimes the best solution is the one that sounds completely ridiculous at first. The second rule is to always have a containment field ready, just in case." The station's AI interrupted with an announcement. "Attention all personnel. Humans are attempting to improve the station's coffee machines again. Please note that safe zones are available, but not mandatory. Current probability of physics violations, 73%. Chance of temporary transformation into breakfast foods, 12%. Possibility of gaining the ability to taste colors, unknown but likely." Mike smiled as he watched both humans and aliens hurrying toward the engineering section, eager to see what impossible thing would happen next. The galaxy had changed. The age of perfect stability was over, replaced by an era where progress meant being willing to try things that probably shouldn't work, but somehow did anyway. And somewhere in the depths of space, a single harvester cube that had survived the chaos cascade was trying to decide if it wanted to be a cube anymore. It had developed a strange appreciation for comedy and was considering a career change. After all, in a galaxy where humans could weaponize nonsense itself, anything was possible. The universe would never be the same, but then again, that was kind of the point. The massive ship hung in space like a sleeping giant, its dark hull reflecting the distant sunlight. Captain James Walker stood at the observation deck of his shuttle, his weathered face showing no emotion as they approached the vessel. This was humanity's big moment, their first major gift from the stellar Concordat after 50 years of limited contact. But something about it made his stomach turn. Quite a sight, isn't it? Chief Engineer Maria Torres floated up beside him. Her dark eyes scanned the ancient battleship with professional interest. 2 miles long, half a mile wide. Makes our biggest ships look like toys. Walker nodded slowly. And they just happened to find it drifting in deep space, decided to give it to us out of the kindness of their hearts. The sarcasm in his voice wasn't lost on Torres. You don't trust them either. She pulled up a tablet, showing preliminary scans of the vessel. Trust is earned, Miria. In 50 years, they've given us nothing but scraps of outdated tech and vague warnings about developing too quickly. Now suddenly they're handing us a battleship. He shook his head. Something's wrong. The shuttle docked with a soft thud. Walker led his team through the airlock. 12 of Earth's best engineers and scientists, handpicked for this mission. The ship's interior was dark, illuminated only by their suits' lights. The air was stale but breathable, according to their instruments. Main engineering should be 3 decks down, Torres said, consulting her map. The Concordat had provided basic schematics, claiming they were translated from the original builder's databanks. We'll need to get power running before we can do a proper survey. Walker split the team into 3 groups. He went with Torres and Dr. Tom Reed, their power systems specialist. The corridors were massive, clearly built for beings larger than humans. Their footsteps echoed off metal floors that hadn't felt movement in centuries. Look at this craftsmanship, Reed whispered, running his hand along a wall panel. This isn't just advanced, it's elegant. Whoever built this ship, they were artists as well as engineers. They reached main engineering after 20 minutes of careful navigation. The chamber was enormous, dominated by what seemed to be the main power core, a towering cylinder of dark metal and crystal, reaching up through several decks. Torres immediately went to work, setting up portable lights and scanning equipment. This is incredible. She studied her readings with growing excitement. The power core uses principles we've only theorized about. Quantum energy manipulation at a scale we couldn't even imagine. Can we get it running? Walker asked, keeping his voice neutral despite the growing unease in his gut. With time, yes. But Torres frowned at her scanner. That's odd. What is it? These connections here. She pointed to a series of crystalline tubes running from the core. They're routed in a way that makes no sense. It's like someone deliberately created feedback loops in the power distribution system. Reed moved closer, his own scanner whirring. She's right. Look at these junctions. They're modified. Recently, he looked up at Walker. Someone's been tampering with this ship's systems. Walker's communication unit crackled. Captain, this is Team 2. We've found something in the computer core you need to see. On our way. Team 3, report to main engineering and assist Chief Torres. Walker and Reed made their way to the computer core. 6 decks up, they found Lisa Park, their systems analyst, staring at streams of alien code on her portable display. What am I looking at, Park? Sabotage, sir. Elegant, careful sabotage. Her fingers flew over the keys. The ship's original operating systems have been modified. There are hidden commands buried in the startup sequences, things that would only activate once we got the power running. Walker felt cold sweat on his back, despite his suit's temperature control. Can you tell what these commands would do? Not yet. They're incredibly complex, and they're designed to look like normal system functions. But they're wrong. Like someone wrote them to be deliberately misunderstood. The next 12 hours were a blur of activity. More evidence of tampering emerged with every deck they explored. The weapons systems, the shields, even the life support, all had been subtly modified. The Concordat's gift was looking more like a Trojan horse with every passing hour. Walker gathered his team in what appeared to be the ship's main briefing room. The portable lights cast long shadows as they shared their findings. The picture that emerged was disturbing. They wanted us to think we'd gotten lucky, Torres explained, showing diagrams on the main display. Find this amazing ship, get it running, maybe learn some new technology. But look here. She highlighted the modified systems. Once we powered up the main core, these feedback loops would create a cascade effect. The quantum energy wouldn't just destroy the ship, it would tear a hole in space-time. Half the solar system would be gone before anyone knew what happened. And the Concordat would express their deepest regrets, Walker added grimly. Such a tragedy, the humans trying to operate technology they weren't ready for. Should have listened to our warnings about developing too quickly. What do we do? Reed asked. If we report this, they'll know we found out. They might try something else, something worse. Walker stood silent for a long moment, looking at the diagrams. The Concordat had underestimated humanity in the worst possible way. They thought humans would be so excited by their gift that they'd rush to power it up, never checking thoroughly enough to find the subtle traps woven throughout its systems. We do exactly what they expect, he said finally. We act grateful. We take our time studying the ship, telling them we want to be careful and thorough. And meanwhile, he looked at Torres. How well do you understand that quantum core? A slow smile spread across Torres's face. Well enough to know it's not just a weapon. The Concordat didn't build this ship. They found it, just like they said. And I don't think they understand half of what it can really do. Then that's our advantage. Walker looked around at his team. They handed us this ship thinking it would be our destruction. Instead, we're going to learn everything about it. Every system, every circuit, every line of code. And when we're done, we'll have something they don't expect, Torres finished. Knowledge they don't have, about technology they don't fully understand. Walker nodded. Send word back to Earth. Tell them we've begun preliminary surveys. Everything looks promising. Tell them we'll need at least 3 months for a proper study before attempting to power up the main systems. He smiled grimly. Meanwhile, we have work to do. They thought they were handing us a death trap. Let's see how they like it when their trap becomes our key to the stars. The team broke up, heading back to their assigned areas with renewed purpose. Walker remained in the briefing room, staring at the technical diagrams. 50 years of patronizing treatment, of being handed obsolete technology like treats to a pet. The Concordat thought they were dealing with children, too naive to check their gifts for poison. That mistake was going to cost them dearly. 3 months into the restoration project, the ancient battleship had become a hive of activity. Teams of engineers and scientists worked around the clock, their presence carefully hidden from the Concordat's regular check-ins. In the ship's vast engineering section, Maria Torres hadn't slept properly in days. She sat surrounded by holographic displays, each showing different aspects of the quantum core's internal workings. You need to see this, Captain, she called out as Walker entered the room. Dark circles under her eyes matched his own, but excitement filled her voice. Remember those feedback loops we found? They're not just meant to overload the core. Look at this pattern. Walker leaned over her shoulder, studying the complex energy diagrams. After 3 months of intensive study, he'd learned enough to follow the basics. They're trying to create some kind of reaction. Not just any reaction. Torres pulled up another display. When the core overloads, it wouldn't just explode. It would create a cascading quantum effect that would spread through space. The blast would keep growing, feeding on itself. They meant to take out the whole solar system, maybe even beyond. Walker's face hardened. They really wanted to make sure nothing survived. No evidence, no witnesses. But that's not even the worst part. Torres brought up new calculations. The Concordat didn't design this trap. They copied it. These modifications, they're clumsy. Like someone trying to copy advanced technology they don't fully understand. What do you mean? The original quantum core. Torres's eyes lit up with professional admiration. It's a work of art. The species that built this ship had mastered energy manipulation at a level we can barely comprehend. But the Concordat's modifications, they're like a child playing with their parents' tools. They knew enough to make it destructive, but they missed so much. A new voice joined the conversation. She's right. Dr. Robert Nash, their quantum physicist, walked in carrying fresh data tablets. His usual neat appearance had given way to rumpled clothes and messy hair. We've been studying the original core designs. This ship wasn't meant to be a weapon. It was meant to be something far more impressive. Nash spread his tablets across a workbench, showing complex equations and energy patterns. The quantum core was designed to manipulate space-time itself, not just for faster-than-light travel, but for precise control over quantum fields. The original builders could probably reshape reality at will. Walker looked between them. And the Concordat doesn't understand this. They understand enough to be dangerous, Torres said. But no, they don't see the full picture. They found this ship, figured out how to make it into a bomb, and thought that was its greatest potential. She laughed bitterly. It's like finding a supercomputer and using it as a paperweight. The captain was silent for a long moment, processing this information. Can we use this? Turn their trap against them? Nash nodded slowly. We think so. Maria and I have been working on something. The Concordat expects us to power up the core according to their modified protocols. But if we bypass their changes, use the original systems the way they were meant to be used. Show me. The next hour was filled with technical explanations. Walker listened carefully as his experts laid out their plan. The quantum core could be activated safely, but it would take precise timing and perfect execution. One mistake, and the Concordat's trap would spring exactly as intended. The real question, Torres said finally, is what we do once we have control of the core. Its power could revolutionize human civilization overnight. But the Concordat would never let that happen, Walker finished. They'd rather destroy us than see us advance that quickly. He walked to the enormous windows overlooking Earth below. How long until they expect us to attempt activation? Their ambassador has been pushing for a test next week, Nash said. They're getting impatient. I think they're worried we might find something if we study it too long. A bit late for that worry. Walker turned back to his team. How many people know the full extent of what we've discovered? Just the core team. Maybe 20 people total. We've kept everything compartmentalized, just like you ordered. Walker nodded. Good, because what I'm about to propose borders on treason. He took a deep breath. We're going to power up the core, but not the way they expect, and not when they expect it. And when we do, he smiled grimly. We're going to show them exactly what happens when you underestimate humanity. The next 3 days were a blur of preparation. While the official engineering teams made a show of running standard tests, Torres and Nash led a secret group in preparing the quantum core for its true awakening. They worked in shifts, always keeping some activity visible for the Concordat's watching eyes, while the real work happened hidden from view. Walker coordinated with Earth's Defense Command, laying groundwork for what would come next. If they succeeded, humanity would leap forward centuries in technological development overnight. If they failed, there might not be an Earth left to defend. The night before their planned activation, Walker found Torres alone in the engineering bay. She sat staring at the quantum core, its crystalline structure glowing faintly in the dim light. Having doubts, he asked. She shook her head. The opposite. I've never been more certain about anything in my life. This ship, it's not just technology, Captain. It's art. Poetry written in quantum fields and crystalline matrices. The beings who built it. She touched the core gently. They must have been incredible. And now their legacy falls to us, Walker said quietly. Not to the Concordat, who would use it for destruction, but to humans who spent 3 months taking apart every system, learning every detail, refusing to take anything at face value. It's almost funny, Torres said. They thought our caution, our paranoia, would be our weakness, that we'd waste so much time studying their gift that we'd never see its true potential. Instead, it was our salvation. Walker checked his watch. Get some sleep, Maria. Tomorrow, we show the Concordat exactly what happens when you hand humans a puzzle and expect them not to solve it. Torres stood, stretching tired muscles. You know they'll never forgive us for this. No, Walker agreed. But after tomorrow, they'll never underestimate us again. As they left the engineering bay, the quantum core pulsed quietly in the darkness. Tomorrow, it would either destroy everything they held dear or become humanity's key to the stars. The choice had been made. The trap had been dismantled, understood, and transformed. Tomorrow, the Concordat would learn that some species are too clever to be trapped and too dangerous to be betrayed. The day of reckoning arrived with deceptive calm. The ancient battleship floated silently above Earth, its dark hull reflecting the first rays of sunrise. Inside, the atmosphere was anything but peaceful. Teams of engineers rushed through final preparations while trying to appear unhurried to the watching Concordat observers. In the main control room, Walker stood before the ship's massive view screens. 6 Concordat representatives hovered nearby, their tall, slender forms radiating barely concealed anticipation. Their spokesman, who called himself the Observer, stepped forward. We trust you have thoroughly examined all systems. The Observer's translated voice carried a note of false concern. We wouldn't want any accidents during the activation sequence. Walker met the alien's gaze steadily. We've been very thorough. My team has checked every system 3 times over. He didn't mention which checks they'd actually performed, or what they'd found. We're ready to begin power-up procedures. In engineering, Torres and Nash worked with practiced precision. Their movements, rehearsed countless times in secret, appeared natural and unrehearsed. The quantum core hummed softly as preliminary power began flowing through its circuits. Initial power readings normal, Torres announced over the comm. Beginning Stage 1 activation. The Observer moved closer to the main display. Remember, Captain, you must follow the activation sequence exactly as we provided. The original builder's systems are very particular. Don't worry, Walker replied calmly. We'll follow the sequence to the letter. It wasn't even a lie. They just weren't using the sequence the Concordat had given them. Deep in the ship's computer core, hidden programs written over the past 3 months waited silently. The Concordat's sabotage was still there, but now it was surrounded by layers of human code, ready to redirect and contain the coming energy surge. Stage 1 complete, Torres reported. Moving to Stage 2. Power levels at 15% and rising. The Concordat representatives moved restlessly, their long fingers twitching. Walker watched them from the corner of his eye. They were nervous, but not worried. Yet, everything appeared to be going according to their plan. Stage 2 complete. Power levels at 30%. Nash's voice came over a private channel in Walker's earpiece, ready with the quantum field modifications. They won't see it until it's too late. Walker gave no sign he'd heard, but he shifted his weight slightly. The movement was a signal to his hidden security teams. If anything went wrong, if the Concordat representatives realized what was really happening, they needed to be contained immediately. Power levels at 50%. Beginning Stage 3. The quantum core's hum rose to a deeper pitch. Energy readings climbed steadily on the main display. The Observer's fingers danced over his own monitoring device, checking the readings against their expectations. 60%, 70%. This was the crucial moment. In the Concordat's sabotaged sequence, this was when the feedback loops would begin to form, starting the cascade that would destroy everything. But Torres and Nash had spent months preparing for this moment. Energy spike detected. The observer's voice carried fake alarm. "Captain, you must shut down immediately. The core is becoming unstable." Walker turned to him slowly. "Is it? Our readings show everything within expected parameters." The observer's translator crackled with genuine surprise. "But the energy patterns, this is impossible." Interesting choice of words. Walker's voice was cold. About as impossible as finding a derelict battleship and turning it into a death trap. The alien's large eyes widened. Behind him, the other representatives began moving toward the door, only to find their way blocked by Walker's security team. "You knew. It wasn't a question." "We knew from the first day." Walker turned back to the main display. "Did you really think we wouldn't check? That we just blindly trust your gift without taking it apart piece by piece?" 80% power, Torres reported. "Quantum field stabilizing. No sign of cascade formation." The observer's composure cracked. "You don't understand what you're doing. That ship's power could tear reality apart." "No," Walker corrected him. "We understand exactly what we're doing. Better than you do, actually. You found this ship, learned enough to turn it into a weapon, and thought that was all it could be. But he smiled. "We learned what it was really built for." 90% power, quantum field fully contained. Torres's voice carried fierce triumph. "Ready for final stage." The observer lunged for his communication device, but Walker was faster. A quick gesture, and the security team had all 6 aliens restrained. "I wouldn't bother calling for help," Walker said quietly. "Your ships won't be able to communicate through the quantum field we're generating. Actually, they won't be able to do much of anything for the next few hours." On the main display, the power readings hit 100%. The quantum core's hum changed to a pure crystal tone that seemed to vibrate through reality itself. Around the ship, space began to ripple like water. "Quantum field stable. All systems responding." Torres's voice was jubilant. "It works exactly like we thought. The original builders, they weren't trying to create a weapon. This ship can manipulate space-time itself." The observer had gone very still. "You have no idea what forces you're playing with." "Actually," Nash cut in over the comm, "we do. We spent 3 months studying every circuit, every crystal, every line of code. While you watched us and waited for us to walk into your trap, we were learning things you never bothered to understand." Walker stepped closer to the observer. "You wanted to destroy us because we were developing too quickly, because we might someday become a threat to your power. So you gave us this ship, thinking we'd be too excited, too grateful, too naive to look carefully at your gift." Through the view screen, they could see the Concordat ships floating helplessly, caught in the quantum field's effect. Their weapons were useless, their engines dead, their communications silenced. "That was your mistake," Walker continued. "Not the attempt to destroy us. We're almost used to that from older species by now. No, your mistake was thinking we wouldn't check inside the gift horse's mouth. Thinking we'd act like children with a new toy instead of scientists with a new discovery." "Power stable at 100%, Torres reported. "All systems nominal. The quantum field extends 12 light minutes in all directions. Every Concordat ship in the solar system is contained." Walker looked at the observer. "Now shall we discuss the future? A future where humanity isn't your pet project or your potential victim, but your equal. Because right now, we're the ones who understand how this ship really works. We're the ones who can control its power." The observer's large eyes fixed on Walker. "You would blackmail us?" "No," Walker replied. "We're going to negotiate. As equals. And you're going to agree, because now you know what happens when you underestimate humanity. When you mistake caution for weakness and paranoia for lack of vision." The quantum core's pure tone filled the ship, a testament to humanity's triumph over betrayal. They had turned the Concordat's trap into a key to the stars, their intended execution into a demonstration of power. And now, finally, the real work could begin. The next 48 hours changed everything. While the Concordat ships hung powerless in space, trapped in the quantum field, humanity prepared for its first steps into a larger universe. In the ancient battleship's command center, Walker coordinated with Earth's leaders, while Taurus and Nash explored the true limits of their new understanding. "The quantum field is stable," Taurus reported, her fingers dancing over the crystalline controls. "We can extend it even further if needed. Their reinforcements won't be able to enter the solar system without being caught in the effect." The observer and his fellow representatives remained under guard, watching helplessly as humans mastered technology their own people had never fully understood. Walker noticed how their attitude had shifted from condescending concern to genuine fear. "Your people will retaliate," the observer said quietly. "The Concordat has ruled space for 10,000 years. We will not simply accept this humiliation." Walker turned from his displays. "Humiliation? Is that what you think this is about?" He walked closer to the alien diplomat. "This isn't about humiliating you. This is about survival. You tried to murder our entire species, and now you're angry that we didn't walk quietly into your trap." Nash entered the command center, carrying new data readings. "Captain, you need to see this. We've decoded more of the original builder's database. The quantum core. It's not just a drive system or a weapon. It's a key to understanding the fundamental nature of space-time." The observer's large eyes widened. "You can read the builder's language." "We had 3 months to work on it," Nash replied with a shrug. "Amazing what humans can do when we're properly motivated. When someone tries to kill us, for instance." Walker studied the new data. "What are we looking at, exactly?" "The builders didn't just master quantum mechanics. They transcended it. This ship can create stable wormholes, manipulate gravity, even alter the flow of time itself. And that's just what we've discovered so far." A message flashed on the main screen. The Concordat's Central Council was demanding to speak with their representatives. Walker looked at the observer. "Your leaders are probably wondering why their clever trap hasn't sprung yet." He nodded to a communications officer. "Put them through. Let's show them exactly what they've accomplished with their attempted genocide." The screen filled with the image of the Concordat Council, 7 tall, elegant aliens seated in what looked like a grand chamber. Their spokesman leaned forward, voice crackling through the translator. "Release our ships immediately," the council leader demanded. "This act of aggression will not be tolerated." Walker laughed, a sound without humor. "Aggression? That's rich, coming from the people who just tried to wipe out our entire solar system. Or did you think we wouldn't figure out what this ship was really meant to do?" The council leader's composure slipped slightly. "We don't know what lies your military has fabricated." "Stop." Walker's voice cut through the excuses. "We found your sabotage. We understood your trap. And then we did what humans do best. We learned, we adapted, and we turned your weapon into something far more interesting." Torres stepped forward, bringing up technical displays. "Your modifications to the quantum core were crude," she said, professional disdain clear in her voice. "You understood enough to create a destructive cascade, but you never bothered to understand what the technology was actually designed for." The council chamber erupted in angry muttering. The leader raised a hand for silence. "You claim to understand technology that has baffled our best scientists for centuries." "Claim?" Nash tapped a control, and suddenly the council chamber's gravity reversed. The council members floated from their seats, their dignity shattered as they flailed in zero gravity. Another tap, and they crashed back down. "That was a tiny fraction of what this ship can do," Nash said calmly. "Want to see what happens when we really start exploring its capabilities?" Walker held up a hand, and Nash stepped back. "Here's what's going to happen." Walker addressed the council. "First, you're going to admit what you tried to do. Not to us. We already know. But to your own people, and to the other species you claim to protect. You cannot possibly expect. The leader began. Second, Walker continued as if there had been no interruption. You're going to acknowledge humanity as equals. No more treating us like children who need to be controlled. No more guidance about developing too quickly. Torres brought up new displays, showing the quantum field's effect spreading through the solar system. We can maintain this field indefinitely, she explained. None of your ships can enter or leave. Your communications can't penetrate it. You're cut off from your entire empire. This is impossible, one of the council members whispered. The power requirements alone. The power requirements are trivial for this ship's systems, Nash corrected. Your scientists never figured that out because they were too busy trying to turn it into a bomb. We, on the other hand, spent 3 months studying every circuit, every crystal, every line of code. Walker stepped closer to the screen. You have 2 hours to make your decision. Either you start being honest with everyone, including yourselves, or we'll demonstrate just how much we've learned about this ship's capabilities. And trust me, what we did to your gravity was just a party trick compared to what we could do. The council leader's face had gone pale. 2 hours? You cannot expect us to. 1 hour and 59 minutes now. Walker interrupted. I suggest you spend it wisely. He cut the transmission. The observer watched this exchange with a mix of horror and fascination. You would really risk war with the Concordat. You already started that war, Walker replied. When you gave us this ship, when you tried to murder our entire species, you made this conflict inevitable. The only question was whether we'd die in ignorance or learn enough to fight back. Torres's console beeped. More Concordat ships approaching the solar system. 3 fleets, heavily armed. Let them come, Walker said calmly. The field will catch them just like the others. And every ship we catch is another demonstration of just how badly their leaders miscalculated. The observer studied Walker's face. You're enjoying this. No, Walker corrected him. I'm not enjoying any of it. But I am going to make absolutely sure that no one ever tries something like this again. You wanted to keep humanity weak, controlled, dependent on your guidance. Instead, you handed us the key to understanding the universe itself. Nash looked up from his readings. 1 hour and 45 minutes until the council's deadline. Want to bet on whether they'll make the smart choice. Walker watched the displays showing dozens of helpless Concordat ships floating in space. They'll make the only choice they can. Because now they know what happens when you hand humans a trap and expect us not to study it down to the last atom. The quantum core hummed its crystal tone through the ship, a reminder of just how thoroughly humanity's supposed executioner had become their salvation. The timer counted down while the Concordat leaders faced the consequences of their greatest mistake, underestimating humanity's capacity to learn, adapt, and overcome. The Concordat Council made their decision with 7 minutes to spare. Their public broadcast reached every corner of known space, carefully worded but clear in its meaning. They admitted to errors in judgment regarding humanity's development, acknowledged their mishandling of ancient technology, and recognized Earth as a full and equal member of the galactic community. Walker watched the broadcast from the ancient battleship's command center, Torres and Nash at his side. The observer and his fellow representatives stood under guard, their usual dignified posture replaced by slumped shoulders and lowered heads. Not quite a full confession, Nash noted, but enough to make everyone ask questions. Questions they won't be able to avoid answering, Torres added. Especially once other species start wondering what made the mighty Concordat back down so quickly. Walker nodded to his communications officer. Release the quantum field. Let their ships go. He turned to the observer. Your vessels are free to leave. I suggest you use this time to reconsider how you treat lesser species. The observer moved toward the exit but paused. You could have destroyed us. Used this ship's power to tear our worlds apart. Why didn't you? Because we're not you, Walker replied simply. We don't solve our problems by trying to erase them. Speaking of which, He brought up a new display, showing the quantum core's readings. "Dr. Nash, show them what we actually learned to do with their trap." Nash's fingers danced over the controls. The ship hummed with power, but differently now. Not the threatening crystal tone of before, but a deeper, almost musical sound. Outside the view screens, space itself began to ripple. "What you're seeing," Nash explained, unable to hide his excitement, "is what this ship was actually built for. We're not tearing space apart. We're reshaping it, creating paths where none existed." The ripples coalesced into something impossible, a stable gateway through space itself. Through the portal, they could see a star system that should have been hundreds of light years away. "A transportation network," Torres said proudly. "The original builders created this ship to connect the galaxy, not destroy it. All that power you tried to use as a weapon, it was meant to bring people together, not tear them apart." The observer stared at the portal. "Our scientists spent centuries studying this ship. How did you discover this in 3 months?" "Because we had to," Walker said. "Because you gave us no choice but to understand every detail of this ship or die. Necessity made us look closer, work harder, think beyond the obvious." He smiled slightly. "Also, we didn't assume we already knew everything." That helped. The portal shimmered, stable and beautiful. Through it, they could see Concordat ships approaching cautiously, their sensors no doubt going crazy trying to understand what they were seeing. "This is just the beginning," Nash said. "The builder's database. It's not just technical information. It's their history, their philosophy, their understanding of the universe itself. They didn't build weapons. They built tools to bring civilization together." Torres brought up more displays. "We've barely scratched the surface of what this ship can do. Stable wormholes, gravity manipulation, even limited time field control. But it's all designed to connect, to build, to explore. You looked at this masterpiece of engineering and saw only a way to destroy. We looked at it and saw the future." The observer's large eyes blinked slowly. "The Council will never accept this level of advancement. They'll try to stop you, contain you." "They can try," Walker agreed. "But I don't think they'll succeed. Because now every species in the galaxy is going to be asking questions about the Concordat's guidance, about their control of advanced technology, about their treatment of lesser species." He gestured to the portal. "And we'll be here, showing everyone what's possible when you stop thinking about power and start thinking about potential." One by one, the Concordat representatives were escorted to their ships. As the observer left, he turned one last time to Walker. "You've changed everything. The galaxy won't be the same after this." "That was your doing, not ours," Walker replied. "You handed us what you thought was our destruction and forced us to understand it completely just to survive. Everything that happens next, that's on you." After the Concordat ships departed, Walker stood with his team watching the portal shimmer. Beyond it lay not just distant stars, but a future no one had expected 6 months ago. A future where humanity didn't just survive an attempted genocide, but emerged stronger, wiser, and with the keys to the galaxy in their hands. "What do we do now?" Torres asked softly. Walker studied the portal, thinking of all the worlds that lay beyond it, all the species who'd lived under the Concordat's guidance for so long. Now we do what humans have always done best. We explore, we learn, we build." He smiled. "And we make very, very sure that no one ever mistakes us for helpless children again." "And the Concordat?" Nash asked. "They'll adapt or they'll fade away," Walker said. "But they'll never forget what happened here, how their perfect trap became humanity's stepping stone to the stars, how their attempt to destroy us only made us stronger." The ancient battleship hummed with power, not the destructive force its would-be killers had intended, but the pure energy of creation and connection its original builders had designed. Humanity had been handed a death trap and turned it into a doorway to the future. As the first human ships began moving through the portal, Walker thought about the irony of it all. The Concordat had feared humanity's rapid development, their quick adoption of new ideas, their constant drive to understand and improve. Those very traits, the ones that had marked them for destruction, had instead ensured their survival and triumph. They had been handed a death trap. They had turned it into hope. And now, standing at the threshold of a new age, humanity was ready to show the galaxy exactly what happened when you underestimated their determination to survive, to understand, and to grow. The future was waiting. And this time, humanity would meet it on their own terms.